Okay, very good. And
Tax.
net taxes. Very good. So if this is more than that, we have a term for it. Is this good?
Public
No.
savings.
Oops.
No.
Now change them out. Yep, like that. Okay, so this is not so good. So what do we call it?
Public savings.
I'm sorry?
Savings.
The saving. Okay, the saving. I'll take it. There's another word I'm looking for. Starts with D also. Deficit. Okay, very good. Now notice that the smiling face is not going to appear on your test. Okay, so that's imaginary. So you have to use your imagination. So if you decide that, what happened?
Surplus.
Oops. Yeah, I don't know what's a smiling face. I'm messing up today. So this will be good thing known as savings, and the other word for this will be
Surplus.
surplus. Notice that they all start with S, is both start with D. And if you have exactly
Balanced budget.
balanced budget, very good. And we could still draw the face here. How about like that? Indifferent. Okay, very good. So we're gonna look at, and let's, quick revision here. So national savings consists of two types of savings. What are the categories? What are the two types of savings that we're talking about? They both start with P.
Public and private.
Okay, very good, private and public saving. And then you could break down private savings further into two other types of savings. What would that be?
Local and national.
Who are we?
State.
You and me. We have people, yes. Start with H,
Household.
household savings, yes. And then what about Walmart and
Business.
Belk and all these people out there? The business saving. Okay, very good. All right. So these are the questions that you could expect on the test. Like we might give you some number like that, but we will not come out and say that what it is. So you have to interpret it and then apply it. What is the implied meanings here? Okay. Very quickly, what are some of the reasons that the government are experiencing big deficit now? So during the Reagan administration, which was in the 80s, there was some good things happen, but then, as you know, economic has this lag, LAG. So by the time Clinton became president, we actually experienced some budget surplus. So he was sort of taking credit for it, the Democrat, that is. Government receipt decreased during the recession of 2001, 2007, 2009, which is known as Great Recession. Did anybody do the topic on Great Recession, just by chance?
Mine mentioned it.
Yeah, well, the second half of the semester, that will become more and more relevant, so if you want to do it later. What happened in 2001? Anybody? What was the recession about?
Terrorism.
Okay, September 11th happened on 2001. But before that, anybody remember what happened? What happened in 1995?
I was born.
Were y'all born yet? Not yet.
Housing market increase or?
Okay, Robert, yes? Not yet.
The only one who might know.
He's the only one who knows.
A lot of things happen.
A lot of things happen. Okay. That's funny.
But are you talking about the housing market or inflation?
No,
Yeah.
not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about 1995. Yeah, this is way before that. Yeah. Okay. What did I write? Internet. Yeah. What happened? What's got to do with internet? Anybody remember? Oh, y'all were not born, but that should not be excused. That's history now.
First month-
Just because you weren't born, you say, well, I don't know, how should I know? That's an excuse. Commercialization of internet. So that's what happened, okay? So back then, you started to have companies like Amazon.com, Google's, and they all came about. And then all the way to 2000, and something very significant happened in 2000, before 2001. Okay, we all know September 11th, but something else happened here. You might have read about it. Now remember, this is a golden period for computer industry. Okay, all the stocks are doing so well. What kind of stocks are we talking about?
Soft.
Yeah, okay, Google's, what else? Apple's,
Microsoft.
Seagate, Cyrix, AMD, all those chip makers, industries, all those, Silicon Valley stuff, components, electronic components, makers, manufacturers, they're doing so well. So you have an increase, profit of like 100%, 200%, and then something happened in 2000, in March of 2000. An event happened, we call that event, you heard about that? It's a bubble, and this is the time that the bubble actually burst. Whoa, very bad. So a lot of people actually lost 10,000 easily because suddenly, it's a lot of overvalue in these technological stocks. And so the economy was, and a lot of people lost a lot of money, including myself, easily 10,000. So then what happened was the economy was trying to recover. And then September 11 hit, so that was really bad. And then so we plunged into a recession. So what this is saying is that during recession, what happened? People get laid off. So if people get laid off, right, you're not getting income. So you got less income, therefore government are receiving less net taxes. So then, so therefore, recession happened. And then during the Bush administration, and that would be 1989 was, two things happened. Anybody remember? Well, no, why did I go back so far? You were not born in 1995. You wouldn't remember 1989. Would you? Two important historical events that took place. Any history major? Well, a number of historical events that happened in 1989.
Would it be the Iran-Contra affair? Was that?
Okay, that was more like in around 1987. Okay, you were very close. Have you heard about Desert Storm?
Oh yeah.
Okay, see? Even though you were born in 90s, you have heard about Desert Storm. So what happened? What happened? Remember Senior
Iraq was,
George Bush? Okay, yes, Robert, go ahead.
Iraq was bullying Kuwait, and we stepped
Okay.
up and prevented that from happening.
That's right. Okay, so there is a war going on there, and I think we call it a Gulf War. Two other things happen around the world. No, none of you travel? This is important, economic history. Yeah, yes.
Was it the Germany, the Berlin Wall?
Yes. What do we call that? The Berlin Wall fell
In '88,
around that time. And then one other event, this is very, very important one. I'll give you a hint. Communism. Okay?
start of the Cold War, or the end of the Cold War.
Well, sort of, more or less. That's when the Soviet Union, remember, became, what's the term that we use? Dissolved, right? So then you started to have all these little countries that became independent. So this is all very important year in histories, economic histories that I will refer to every now and then, other than the first and the second oil shock. So government spending increased from 2000 and 2010, and mostly because of these two reasons here, and you can read it. One of them is because September 11, you start to have this new department called Department of Homeland Security, when you go through the airport. Good luck. So history will never be the same. And then you got war going on in Iraq. Robert, you mentioned that that's your Gulf War there. And then there's another war happened somewhere else. Okay. Now, if you look at the national savings historically, you could see that it's mostly on the positive, right? So roughly around 2013, what do you say? What would you say this would be? Around 12, 13%, somewhere there. Okay, so that's not too bad. At least, you know, it's in the positive and it's going up and down, but then it hovers around 12 to 18%, somewhere there. It's healthy looking. But remember that this is only national savings. So what does it say here? Less volatile than household savings. Let's look at the next one. Oh, this is pretty serious here. So you got 3 lines here. The top 2 are business and household savings, and this one is government savings. So you could see that the household savings are in general on the decline. How bad? Tell me a percentage that you could name, identify. What's the lowest point?
2%.
About 2%, very good. So that's not very good compared with Japan, like what, Singapore 40%, and so household savings was only about 2%. But look what happened. During the Great Recession, 2007, people were actually increasing their household savings, which I find that to be very interesting. If you ever want to do a paper on that, I think that would make a very interesting paper there. But look at business saving, more or less stays the same and very positive. The last one that I want to point out is the one at the bottom, which is the government saving. And what happened? How would you describe this? Boo! Green line, yes, and boo. What boo are we talking about? It's in the negative. It's below 0. Did you notice that? Did you notice that line across like that? So it's all in the negative. So that means you're experiencing some sort of deficit. So there was a small windows of time that you actually experienced positive. And that was during the Clinton's administrations. It was a slight, what we call savings or what we call surplus. And then after that, it plunged. Ooh, where's Obama? 2008. And tried to rescue, right? Tried to get up, but so this is bad. All those years here, the junior Bush years, we're not doing good. So now you look at it and say, how can the country survive? What about our national saving? Remember a while ago, you look at national saving, you say it's healthy looking, but look what happened here. So they cancel out each other because this 2 on top is your private saving, and they're all in the positive. But the one at the bottom is negative. So they cancel out each other. So at the end, you have something known as government savings that's, thank goodness, it's above 0. And mostly thanks to the business saving and to some extent household savings, but not the government savings. Okay, so this is describing what happened here. So your national saving would decide what the country ability to invest in new capital. So that's the most important one. So if you do a paper, I hope you concentrate more on national savings rather than household or business saving. Because if you talk about national saving, essentially you could break it down into household or business or even government saving. Household saving has been low, business saving has been significant, as we have seen. In the 90s, government savings increased, and that's talking about that period of time I pointed out, the Clinton administration, early 90s. From 1960 to 2002, so right after September 11, national saving rate was fairly stable. And then after that, you saw what happened. It started to decline substantially, and that's, you got, so again, we're using the same term over and over. When you use the term government savings, it's the same as saying the government is experiencing big deficit there. Okay, next, we want to go back and use 3 theories to explain savings. We want to look at the Japanese model, and then we want to compare to the US model. Why do people say three motive for saving, which you have seen earlier, my very first slide for this particular chapter on the PowerPoint slide. So life cycle savings, yeah, you save to go to college, you save to get married, you save to have babies, and you save to retire, all that. Precautionary saving, this is talking about motive. Okay, remember I mentioned there are two types of emergency. One is job, you could be laid off during recession. And then the second thing was about the medical emergency. That could happen suddenly. And the last one, you never heard about it. This is the first time I introduced it. It's known as bequest saving. So what is bequest? You bequest to the next generation. So basically what that is saying is this is talking about inheritance. So does people still do that in this country that you know of? Okay. I know in Asian culture, Japanese, Chinese, and to some extent Hispanic, I think, because I used to have Hispanic student in the class and say, yeah, that's a big thing, you know, you save for the next generation. So now we're gonna look at the Japanese model. Remember all this is in your book, and we're just highlighting it. So let's look at what happened in Japan. You heard about Japanese live long life. Maybe they eat a lot of this fish, you know, sushi and what is this thing called? The raw fish.
Sashimi.
Forget what it is. Is that sushi?
Sashimi.
Sashimi. Yeah, that's right. I should know. I minored in Japanese, you know, in my undergraduate year. That was so long ago. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, sashimi. That's correct. After World War II, household saving rates were about 15 to 25%, and that is considered extremely high if you compare to American household saving, which a while ago somebody said only 2%, right? Okay, decline after 1990. And then we're going to use these three cycles of three motives of saving to explain Japanese savings behavior. You know, the whole nation, how do they save? Okay, so they have long life expectancy as compared to the US. Now think about it this way, if let's say you retire at age 65, and you got 25 more years to go, that's a long way, right? You have to support yourself. So therefore, savings is becoming very important in that country. Yeah, well, that's what it means here. So if you retire early, then you have very long retirement period, and where do you get your money? You don't expect the government to keep supporting you. You should at least have some saving. At least that's how they look at it. Age structures of the population favor saving. What does that mean? Have you heard about the term like people say, oh, the nation is aging? What does that mean when they say they're aging?
Lower birth rates, higher retirement rates.
Okay. What else? There's one other element.
The average age of the population getting older.
Okay, people live longer too. So remember the baby boomers, right? They were born between 1946 to 64. I mentioned that before. So I think we calculated the, most of them are over 55 now. So the aging of population, sometimes you use the term, the growing of the population, the growing of the nation. That's referring to people, you got a big bulk or big percentage of older people of retirement age, but then you got a small percent, relatively speaking, of working age population to support the older population. And if you look at the advanced country today, like in Europe as well as in the US, they're in that situation right now because of the baby boomers syndrome. So housing prices, down payment were very high, and so now the Japanese economy, they have experienced a long period of what we call stagnation. The economy was not growing during the 1990s. So there were some jokes, example that I read or somebody told me that you will build a highway, expensive. Well, remember GDP is for you to spend, C plus I plus G plus NX. So if the G goes up, that's good. So the government has to spend the money. So they build all these highways that nobody used. I remember in one of the Middle Eastern countries, forgot whether it was Qatar or Saudi Arabia, they will build this fancy, expensive bridge with marbles and everything because they got the money. When they finished building that bridge, right? This is the first person account somebody told me about it. So they have to spend money. So what they do is they build lampposts so close to each other. It's not necessary. Today, in this country, you see lampposts as this is one, this is two. Here they keep putting more. So this is the beginning of the bridge to the end. So they got to spend money. So they spend it on the lampposts and they only use it one time. They light up the lights, everything, and then the king, would parade through in the motorcade, and this is the opening ceremony of the bridge, and that was it. And then they close down the bridge. So that's a waste, we say, but they have to spend money to boost the GDP. So Japan is like that too. So they got the money, they got to spend it, but then, nobody's using it because they're experiencing a heavy period of stagnation. And that's something that you could also do as a topic if you're interested in Japanese economies during the 1990s, although you have to relate to present age as well. What happened was they actually went through the same period, same phenomenon that the U.S. is going through in 2007. That is the housing market crash, and so they did the same thing too. Housing prices, down payment requirement were very high. This is a very expensive city. I've been there so many times, and if you stay in an airport for 5 hours even, so expensive. If you buy a razor or something, my son told me the story, it's like $12 for just one single razor. Okay, so the down payment requirement were also very high. What is the down payment requirement today in the U.S. Housing market? Anybody now? Like how many percent? Yes.
20%.
Okay, roughly about 20%, correct. Now, I think in Japan it's a lot higher than that. So, in order to be able to afford it, they actually have to save a lot more. Because savings matters, because, they believe in all families should live under one roof. So the nuclear family, the extended family all live under one roof. So therefore, precautionary saving is low. So they don't, not therefore. Precautionary savings is low because I have to tell you a story, in order to tell you what that is. Now, remember the precautionary savings is mostly about if you get laid off, then, you want to make sure that you got money coming in. Now, in Japan, that's not so much of a problem because you know why? The society is very, what we call hierarchical. They believe in hierarchy. So whatever elementary school that you go to will decide which high school you go to. Whichever high school that you end up in will decide which university or college you go to. Whichever college or university you go to, the minute you enter the university, you don't have to worry because all these big companies will come lining up looking for you. So it's very famous in Japan after the student have taken college entrance exam, which is like your SAT that you're taking, or you have taken before you came here. They have it made because then it decide which particular university they go to. And then you see a lot of them traveling to Europe because they got money, They say, well, I got it make, so college is a joke, Once they enter into university, they have it made. The big companies will come looking for them when they graduate. So because now when they get a job in Japan, right, it's very, very secure. Because you know why? The working life is, they treat you like a family. So I know a lot of friends who told me stories like, I know this for fact too, that even after work, they want you to socialize with colleagues. Now, if you work 8 hours a day with the same colleagues, would you want to socialize with them? afterward. You probably want a different groups of friends, right? Like to socialize there. Yeah, that's what they do. They go for bowling together. They go to this pachinko, play these pinball machines. It's very secure. They treat you like a family. So because of that, the need for precautionary saving is not there. Okay, we're back to this equation. Remember this equation in the earlier test? So I'm going to write it down again. You see it about 3 times throughout this whole macroeconomics course. So earlier you saw this equation, I think it was in, I forgot what was it, inflation, the chapter on inflation. So we're gonna revisit this equation again. This is your real interest rate equals to little I, which is your nominal interest rate, minus inflation rate. So remember we talked about Fisher effect. So now we are going to apply this to saving. So typically when people save, you're not just saving cash. You have a portfolio of saving. Portfolio means collections of assets that you use for saving. And these are items like bond, CD. This is not your music CD. This is certificate of deposit. You got stocks, you got mutual funds, savings, interest-bearing checking. Does everybody know what is mutual funds? Anybody invest in mutual funds at all? It's basically combinations of stocks and bonds. You have all kinds that they try to balance it so that it's not too risky. Because if you have everything in stocks, it's a collections of maybe 5 company stocks. It could be in the same area like electricity or in the energy sector, which is very high risk, or a mixture of banking industry, high-tech industries, precious metals industry, and then you want to have some fixed income. And that would be more like your bonds there, because bonds is considered very safe. Stocks is considered very risky, but guess which one will yield very high yields? Stocks and not bonds. So the higher the real interest rate, the greater the reward from saving. So then we're getting to the part where you do your homework assignment. So now we're moving on to something called capital market. So please write this down. In your capital market, you have yen and supply curve for capital. So this will be your I, which is your investment function. And here you have the savings of capital, which is your savings. And this is your equilibrium, little R star. And this is your I star and S star. I want to tell you in advance, and this is your real interest rate. So if you want to refer to your textbook, very quickly, can somebody point me to the correct page? If you're a little bit faster than me, let's go do it. Where you have this diagram appear first time. Sorry?
Is it 183?
183, okay, let me look at it. Is that a big screen? Okay, very good. Yep. And let's also turn all the way to, oh, that's good. Yeah, let's just refer to that page 183, figure 8.6. Now I want you to pay attention what's in the horizontal axis. Read it to me.
Saving and investment.
Savings and investment, both. So when you do your homework problem, you have to draw a diagram like that. So remember that in your x-axis, it's not just savings alone or investment alone, but S and I, or you could put S comma I, which is savings and investment, really. So remember that. So what this is saying is that, yes, now, in order to invest in something, right, you use the cost-benefit principle again. So what is that more benefit in investing? Or is it more cost in investing? So how do you decide? So then you have to use this marginal benefit. Is it greater than your marginal cost of investing in a new capital? Okay, and then you switch gear. There are 2 theories that we use. We call it hypothesis, to explain why in the US people save so little. And one of the reason is, one of the hypotheses is known as self-control. And we say people don't have self-control. Oh boy, they got credit card. How many of you have credit card? Okay, what is the interest rate, do you know, if you owe? Typically quite high, right? 24%, something like that. So, and then the borrowing limit is usually quite high too. What is one typical example of your borrowing limit? How much can you borrow up to? Your credit line, I should say.
$5,000.
5,000? Is that high for most of you?
Yeah.
Two.
Okay, I think I've heard something like 500 for students.
That's starting out for most students.
Okay, and then if you good, if you have good credit, you might be able to go all the way up
Well,
to 5,000.
There are student accounts most banks offer which have student credit cards up to $500, but if you work, you can get increased.
Right. Now that usually based on your job. If you have a full-time job or thing, of course you could have a supplementary card with your mom and dad. You know. Anyway, so some of the things that the institution make it very easy to borrow. If you look at your job thing, right, you have to pay Social Security, and they have this, you know, saving schemes that they force you to save for retirement. Because, you know, remember your Medicare, the government, your employer have to contribute certain percentage, and then your Social Security as well. So in other words, you know, they force you, the institution in the U.S. actually is set up in such a way that, you know, it's okay, you know, we got to make, you know. If you don't have enough, hey, you know, you're supposed to save for retirement and all that. And if you try to withdraw before your age 65, which is your retirement age, there is a penalty. So, and then they come out with home equity loans, like how much is the value of your home minus your mortgage. You could still take out a credit line for that home, so-called home equity loans, and credit card with high borrowing limit. So 500 is nothing. So easily you could get 10,000. I think mine is something like 10,000 to 20,000. I know during the Great Recession, I called them up. I told them, I say, well, why is my limit so high? I say, I don't want it so high. Can you lower it? And you say, why? I say, well, nobody wants to spend during this time, you know, what for? And you say, yeah, you're not the only person who's doing that. So there are people who want to cut down the borrowing limit. But, you know, the institution is set up in such a way that they have it ready and make it easy for you to borrow, for you to be in debt. The second hypothesis, we call it demonstration effects. This is like you try to keep up with the Joneses. Like if you see your neighbors having a Lexus or BMW or Mercedes, you know, you feel like you have to keep up with him. He's got a boat, you know, you feel like you have to do the same, you know. And not everybody is like that, but to some extent, sometimes people feel that way, that you have to keep up with your neighbor. And that's not good, because if, according to this particular theory, that's one of the problems. That satisfaction will depend on relative living standards. It's not your living standard, but your neighbor. You measure your success by how big your neighbor house is, you know, what kind of car he drives, what kind of luxury items he's consuming. Then you have a problem. So at the end of the day, you won't be able to save as much. So now let's look at the U.S. case. In the U.S., again, you have it made. You got Social Security, you got Medicare, and very low down payment requirement for home mortgages as compared to Japanese culture. So a while ago, I think, Jerry, you say 20%. I think that's how I understood too. And that allows me to, or other people to be able to afford a home. Precautionary savings, not so much, because the economy have been doing well until the Great Recession. Self-control effects. So again, I have mentioned that the banking institution make it so easy for people to borrow with high borrowing limits. So, and because of that, you know, U.S. households have so much less savings as compared to the Japanese household. Okay, this is where your homework will be relevant, but unfortunately, I cannot cover it because time is up. But I'll give this